So of course, 1 minute before coming up here, I spilled water on myself, so I'm going to strategically put my hair over it so you won't see the splotches. I also brought my notes, and as I was coming up here, I realized the futility of that because I have such terrible writing that I can't read my own handwriting. And I know who to blame in my sister, because when I was 8, I actually had very great penmanship, and we got good grades in handwriting. Because at the time I went to an all-girls school and we actually had classes in handwriting, so I got grades in handwriting. And then my sister started reading my diaries, and I would try to throw her off by writing increasingly messy sentences that only I could read. But then she kept looking. I knew that she was reading my diaries because I would look at her diaries and see what she was saying about my diaries. But then the result of all this was that I have really messy handwriting still, and I have no excuse because I don't think she's interested in my diaries anymore at all. But I digress. I'm going to talk tonight about the Mellgårds of Mellerud, and I say that as though you should know who I'm talking about, and there's little reason you should unless you know them or you're from Sweden or from Mellerud. But that's also why they're the topic of my next book that I'm researching right now. It's going to be a novel based on a true story of my mom's family. So the Mellgårds are a Swedish family, and they live in Mellerud. This is where my mother grew up. And there's no reason why you should know where Mellerud is either, because most people in Sweden don't know. And if you talk to people from Stockholm and you say that your mother is from Mellerud, they don't know what you're talking about. And then sometimes if you talk to people from Göteborg or Gothenburg, which is closer to Mellerud, they'll know, because it's about it's an hour and a half away from Gothenburg inland. They'll know, but they'll say, of all the places to be from, Mellerud. And when I was a teenager, or a little bit older even, there was a movie that came out by a director I really like, Lucas Moodysson, and it's called Fucking Amal. I don't know if anyone's seen it. It's a really good film, and he went on to do Together, which is a movie I really love. But he called it Fucking Amal because there's a town right next to Mellerud called Amal, and so that was the reason. And my cousins and I would drive by it and honk our horns and say Fucking Amal, and that's what we did a lot because there wasn't much else to do in Fucking Amal. But that brings me, but then he had to change the title of the movie, actually changed it to Show Me Love, because when it got a bigger audience, people knew what Show Me Love meant, but they didn't know what Fucking Amal meant. So I'm going to start with the first slide, which is a picture of my grandparents. This is Birger Mellgård and his wife, Vendela, who I was named after, and whose wedding ring I wear, actually, because it was engraved with her name, so they didn't know who else to give it to, so they gave it to me. And my grandfather, as you can see, had a very, very, very tall forehead. We'd always marvel at that. My sister and I would try to measure it in pictures. And he also had really bright blue eyes that were this cornflower blue that I always remember. So they got married when they were very young, and they wanted to live on a farm. He was a farmer, and so they drove around Sweden on a motorbike and looked for farms. And you can go to the next slide. And so they found this very unlikely piece of property, which they'd been told was not a good farm. It did not have good soil, and it would be a very hard farm to make a living on, but they didn't have much money, and so they bought it. And this is in Mellerud. They then had 6 kids in rapid succession, the youngest of whom died shortly after childbirth. And you can see on the next slide here the 6 kids. So there they are. And my mom is that one, Inger Eleonora. And that's not a signal for me, right? Okay, good. In 1945, my grandmother died at the age of 33 of meningitis. So she left behind the 5 kids, and my grandfather had a farm and 5 kids and didn't know what to do, so he sent the youngest one, who was Marianne, isn't she cute, the little one there? He sent her to go live with with Vendela's parents in a neighboring county. So she went to live there, and it was actually a tragedy that happened when she was 1. She was in the farm, and she was afraid of the horses. She heard her uncle riding the horses and bringing a little thresher behind that was cutting the hay, and so she hid in the bushes, but the blades actually cut her leg. So she was sent to go live with, she was sent to the hospital for about a year for, unfortunately there was a doctor who was new, and when everyone else in the hospital was about to amputate the leg, he said, no, I've seen this new practice where you can actually try to put the leg back together, and it will involve a lot of physical therapy. So that's what she did for about a year. And this doctor didn't have children of his own. He fell very much in love with her and wanted to adopt her, but Verge said, no, you cannot adopt my child, she's my child. So the family dynamic was interesting in that Ulla-Britt took over. She's the oldest one. She took over and really became the caretaker to everyone. If you go to the next article, next slide, you'll see an article that was written about her called, it says, it's housewife at 13 years old, house mother at 13 years old. And so she took care of the kids. She didn't go to high school. She did a correspondence course so she could kind of be the mother in the house. And they actually had a really nice childhood. Everyone in the family talks about what an idyllic childhood they had, skating on the lakes in the winter and swimming in the lakes in the summer and boating and running around and causing mischief. One of their favorite things to do was to put out a wallet on the road, and they had a string attached to it, and they would hide in the bushes, and they would wait for people to walk by, and they would do, pull it, and they did that all day long, all summer long. So there he had a good childhood, and but there was the government didn't like the idea of a single man at that time raising 5 children on his own and having it, to take care of the farm as well. So one day, 2 government officials and a nurse who was responsible for the kids in the county came to the house, and they knew businessmen rarely came to the farm in their suits and everything. So the kids and Verge knew something was going on. So the kids hid in the back room behind a door, and they waited to hear what was going on with why these men wanted to talk to their father. And it was suggested to Verge, they overheard that it was suggested to Verge that the family be split up and the kids all go to different homes. And my mom still tells the story of watching behind the door and seeing this fury come to my grandfather's blue eyes. And he had very big hands, and he took his fist and he banged on the table and said, "Out, all of you out." So those people never came back again. But there was a question of how to take care of the kids, and a lot of the teachers in their schools and a lot of the community helped raise them. The kids knew who to go to if they wanted cookies. They knew who to go to if they wanted new clothes, which Ulla-Britt would sew for them. But they also, it was decided by Verge that there should be a governess, so he put an ad in the Gothenburg newspaper for a governess. But every governess that came was promptly scared off by the children. It was kind of Sound of Music style without Julie Andrews or money. And so they would, fill the fireplace with snow. They would just have lots of loud parties. They would somehow manage to scare off the governesses. And I was interviewing my mom and her sister Gerd in Hawaii recently because they all live in different countries, so whenever they get together, I try to go there to try to work on these interviews with them. And they were telling me about one of the women, their school teacher, first grade school teacher, Disa was her name, and how she had intentions on their father. And they were imitating her and how she had very pendulous breasts, and she would play the piano, and her breasts would actually hit the keys as well. And you'll see in this next video clip, I actually feel bad for Disa almost, because these women, 70 years later, they're still making fun of her. And you'll hear my daughter in the background just saying, "Stop laughing, you guys are laughing so much." And again, they're in Hawaii, which is why they're wearing flowers in their hair and stuff. They don't always dress like this. So if we can go to the video clip. It's about Disa. She's saying with the bouncy song. What was that song about?
If the squirrel sits in the pine tree, he's eating the pine cones. And then he hears the children playing, and he got very much in rush. He got scared, so he's jumping from branch to branch. And he heard.
And this is when she's.
You're right. Yeah. And he stood up, and he hit his little leg against the branch,
and he even
his tail.
Even his tail is.
And then it was, Ekorn satt I granen, skulle skala kottar.
So you would all be watching her in church laughing, or where was it, church, or where was she playing this?
No, in school.
In school.
There was song.
And you were all laughing.
On the schedule he says song. First he was writing, and then it was math, and then it was history, and then he says song. So then she moves down to his little organ.
That's right.
And then she... It's so fun. And you saw me.
Stop laughing!
Oh, it's very funny. It's very funny.
I got to teach you that song. Ekorn satt I granen, skulle skala kottar. Fick han höra barnen, då fick han så bråttom. Hoppade han från tallegren, stötte han sitt lilla ben och sen långa luda svansen. Och går in.
So Birger never remarried, but he did raise his 5 children. If you want to go back a couple slides to the picture of all the kids, I'll tell you what happened next. So tragically, Ulla-Britt died on her 29th birthday, when she was 29, on her 1-year wedding anniversary of cancer. And Rolf suffered from polio, and he passed away a couple of years ago, but left 6 of the most beautiful grandkids you've ever seen behind. My mom came to America and married my father. Jared married a Dutchman and moved to Holland, and Marianne still lives on the family farm. And it's really interesting that she, even though she was so scared of horses as a child, she always wanted one of her kids to ride and raise horses. And my cousin Anna now lives on the farm with her family, and she's a professional horseback rider, and still competes. And she also trains others how to ride horses. We were all back at the family farm last summer for a reunion. We all got the T-shirts, because I think a requisite of any reunion is to have T-shirts that you all have to wear. And that it all said Birger's clan, all the T-shirts did. And I was looking there, we were sitting in the same place that my parents, my mom and her sisters and brother used to play, right by the lake. And it was 10 o'clock at night, 9 or 10 o'clock at night, but of course it was still bright out. And the lake was kind of glistening golden, and we were having strawberries and cream for dessert, because that's what all Swedes eat for dessert, is strawberries and cream. And we were sitting there, and I was watching my kids play in the same place that they had all played, and I was thinking about Birger, and if what he would have thought, and if he would have thought the sacrifices were, after his wife's death, were worth it, and if his stubbornness had been worth it. And it was very strange, because at that very moment that I was thinking that, my mom, who has a hand, she won't like me saying this, but she has large hands like her father, she looked at her sisters and she banged her hand on the table and she said, "What a success." So that's the story of the Mellgårds of Mellerud.